सुन लो दिल की पुकार, सुन लो हमको तुमसे प्यार कितना,
हमको तुमसे प्यार कितना,
साई तुम ही जानते,
साई तुम ही जानते,
दिलों की धड़कन तुम हो साई,
दिलों की धड़कन तुम हो साई,
तुम हमारे
Salam. My first knowledge of Baba was when I was around 11 years old. There was a tour that the late Pat Matura had organized for us to go to India and do some sightseeing. We were told that the tour was going to visit the ashram in Puttaparthi, and we were going to see Sai Baba. For me as a little girl, it did not make any, it wasn't something that stood out to me. But for my mom, she immediately became very, very, very interested on hearing the name Sai Baba. So when we got there, I distinctly remember everything to me looked so, innocent. For me, it was just going to sightsee, and this was another place that I was going to. As we reached the ashram, we were taken inside, and we were placed on, in those days there was sand on the ground, and my mom was elated. She just wanted to see Swami. And as he came out and started walking among us, my mom just started to uncontrollably cry. There were tears just flowing continuously. On seeing her, Swami walked straight towards her and stood in front of her and looked at her and smiled. The most beautiful aura that I can remember at that age. And he just put his hand and raised and said, giving her, saying it's okay. That stayed with me for many years. And as he walked, everyone was picking up the sand, like grasping at the sand, keeping it in their hands. And I did the very same thing as he walked along. And that was my first instance of seeing and hearing about Baba. And as a child, it was just, curious. I was just curious to know, who he was. But my mom had this inner sight, I think. It was something that she knew that Baba was special. And I remember when we got back to the bus and we were coming back to Bangalore, she just told me, she said, that is God. She just saw God. And at that point for me again, I looked at her and I said, how do you know it's God? He's God. She said, I'm telling you, I have just seen God. And that was my first knowledge of Swami.
Very nice story to that. Okay, my first knowledge of Bhagavan Sri Siti Sai Baba was in the year 1976. We were introduced to him by my uncle, the late Sri Mohip, who came to us and said that he's taking us to a satsang. I was very young, I didn't know what a satsang was. And he took us to the Marabella Sai Center. And we were very inquisitive to know what is this satsang, what it is about. Who is this Sai Baba he's speaking about? But when I was entering the satsang hall, I heard these lovely bhajans being sung. And immediately I was attracted to music. And as I walked up the stairs, I went directly in front and I sat where all the musicians, in those days I wasn't a musician as yet, but where all the musicians were sitting, I went right up there and I sat. And I was just looking at the harmonium player. In those days, there were people like Dave Bansraj Rampistone, Dr. Surjatan Rambachan. They were the lead singers who were playing the harmonium and singing, etc. And I was very inquisitive at how they played these instruments. After some time, going to satsang regularly, my father saw that the interest was there, and he bought a harmonium. And he just brought the harmonium home, And I just went behind the harmonium and tried to mimic what they were doing in the satsang, because I used to look at the notes that they were playing, and like that, just naturally I was able to pick some of the simple bhajans. And right there I realized that I had that gift to just listen to something or look at something and be able to try to follow that on the harmonium. And after that, I started actually singing bhajans, and I was just 9 years old at the time. And with Uncle Chilo from the Marvelous High Center, we went all over the country, the length and breadth of Trinidad, doing satsangs all over the country. And everybody was wondering, this little guy, you could hardly see him behind the harmonium. Sometimes I remember going to satsang and my left hand tired, because of the pumping, and someone else would pump the harmonium and I would just play, because I was very young at the time. So that was my first introduction to Swami, and it was really a lovely experience being in satsangs and inquiring who is this Swami, and immediately I was attracted to him and started reading his books and following his teachings, etc. In 1987, I received a scholarship through Dr. Surgata Ramachan to study music in India. Actually, we used to go all over the countries doing yagnas, and I used to play the keyboard in those days for him at these yagnas, and people always wanted to give him something, but he never really accepted any monetary gains from them. So one day, I clearly remember he asked, we were at a Ramayana yagna, and he asked me, people always want to give us something. What about if we start a scholarship fund? And you'll be the first recipient of that. And the next night in the yagna, he announced that we are going to start a scholarship fund, and first recipient is going to be Rana Mohip, and he'll be going to India to study. And about 8 months after that, we got quite a bit of money, and he came and he deposited the money into my father's account, joint with me, and I left for India in 1987. That very year, on my first holiday from school, I joined in July, and in December we got first holidays, and I decided to go to Puttaparthi. I found out that Dr. R.P. Maharaj and they were at Prashanti Nilayam, and I decided to travel and meet them there actually. And going to Puttaparthi, we were very excited to see Swami for the first time. And I remember that very first darshan actually, early in the morning, we went and we lined up, etc. And we just saw Swami, coming for darshan, like he's floating, walking through the crowd, and all my paws, raised, and it was really, I really felt, divine just to have that darshan of the Lord actually. And that was my first experience there back then. And
so my interaction with Baba was in 1991. I had also gone up to study at the Katha Kendra, studying dance. And on my first vacation, I had this inner urge out of nowhere to visit the ashram after so many years. There was a big gap of time because I was 11 when I first heard of him, and my mom kept a picture in her room when we came back from that trip. So that was my vision of him. So I knew what he looked like. And in 1991, it so happened that Rana was also going to the ashram, and his father had passed away actually, and we ended up meeting and going on that trip to Swami's ashram.
yes, that was in 1991. My father had passed, and I came back home for the funeral, and then I took some of the ashes actually after the cremation to take it to the Ganges, and I thought that it would be most fitting, if at first I take it to Prashanti and have Swami bless these ashes, before going to the Ganges. So I took these ashes with me, and every day I would take the ashes, and then one day Swami was walking, and I just held up the ashes, and I said, Swami, this is my dad's ashes. And he just came, he said, yes, I do. And he came and he touched the ashes. And that was the blessing, that I had longed for. And in fact, when I reached back to Delhi, before going to Puttaparthi, I had mentioned to Suzanne who was studying at the time in India as well, that I'm going to Swami, to Puttaparthi. And she was also interested in going. And that's how she ended up going on that trip actually.
And that's where actually our journey started. It's on that trip actually I realized that he was going to be my husband because we were on that trip, we interacted, and then when I got to Swami's ashram, there was something that was telling me, what is going to happen, because it seems in my mind there's something that I'm seeing beyond just a friendship with such a wonderful person. And on that trip to Puttaparthi, I remember saying in my mind that Swami, give me some vision, or give me some sign that I should actually see Rana as my future. And I remember distinctly, it was just a day after he came in the morning time, darshan, and said, I just got Padma Namaskar from Swami, and it was so beautiful. So in my mind I said, wow, that is amazing. But Rana had no idea what was going through my mind, the question that I was asking Swami, the conversation that I was having with Swami. So on that particular day, I said to Swami in my heart, I said, Baba, if this has to go further, and I've been asking you for a sign or your blessing to know that this is going to be, my future sitting right next to me. Let me have the, Padma Namaskar as well. On the very same day, he had in the morning, and I went into the ashram again, and lo and behold, Baba came straight and stood directly in front of me. I was in the third line, and of course I was in the end. So Swami, when he moves, there are these rows, and they're like, it's like space in between where he walks. And I was on the first person, the third row, and Baba came straight to me. I think he stood in front of me for about a minute, because I had time to look at him, smile at me, the same look that he gave my mom. And I put my hand on his feet, and I looked at him. He just continuously smiled so beautifully and lovingly. And after that, that's when I knew my future was fixed.
Yes, I clearly remember one day Suzanne and I decided to go to Gokulam, where Swami has his cows. So just both of us went, and we spent some time in Gokulam looking at the cows, etc. And while walking back from Gokulam, just Suzanne and I on the road walking back, and from a distance we saw that Swami's car was coming. So Suzanne had told me that she wanted to get some sign. So
and we were walking together, yeah.
Yeah, so both of us were walking back together to the ashram, and then we saw Swami's car coming. And as the car was approaching us, we were just on the side of the road like this, and Swami just looked at us, and he gave us his blessings.
His blessings.
And that's how we knew that, okay, we were meant to be together. We have the Lord's blessings. So that was back then.
And my interaction with Swami over the years, and it became more personal, and it became more beautiful as we went further along with our relationship and being in India. So Rana, you can explain
Then in 1994, we returned from India, and the Central Coordinator of the West Indies, the late Sri Tajmul Hussain, had asked me to help. You know, they were going to have this Sri Satyasai World Music Festival, and he asked me if I can help with the steel band side, which was the Jit Samaroh Steel Orchestra, you know, to train them to play some bhajans. So I had just gotten married in April of 1995, and then I started going in Lopino where they resided, and I would go twice a week and train them to play the bhajans, etc. So after some time, a core, some of the hierarchy of the organization, I would say, they went to listen to the Samaroh Jazz play, and they went, and I also went along. So they were listening, you know, and they were playing very good. And coming back in the car, you know, they mentioned to me that, you know, it's sounding like something is missing from the bhajans. They're not getting the feel of the bhajans. So I told them to get that feel, you need to have like a big percussive instrument instead of using the drum kit only. If they use a tabla, you know, you would get that Indian feel as to the bhajans, and it would sound much nicer. So I just left it at that, and then Mr. Tajmul Hussain called me the next day, and he said that, would you like to go to India with them? Mind you, I was only asked to train them first of all, and then I said, of course, if I get that opportunity, you know, and this was like 2 weeks before they left. I had just gotten married, so of course I had to get permission, according to the Hindu tradition, that is, from the wife, in order to go to any pilgrimage or even go to Swami. But lovingly, she did give me permission to go. And I remember clearly on that trip, I was like seeing my interaction with India, and having studied in India for 7.5 years, you know, I knew the runabout of India, how to move around. So Mr. Tajmul Hussain asked me to kind of lead that group, which is tomorrow, in terms of taking them to India and making sure that they are well taken care of. So I remember on the actual day of the performance, you know, they set up the steel band and everything, and I was just sitting with the tabla in front. And we did like a half-an-hour presentation of lovely, not just bhajans, but we played some bhajans and some international pieces, some Western classical pieces, some Trinidadian music. You know, it was really well received in the Purnachandra Hall in Puttaparthi. After that performance, the next day, we got a message, you know, everybody was in their room, and we got a message that Swami wants to see all the groups, you know, in the Purnachandra Hall. So we didn't know what it was about. So we had gone, and all the groups were sitting at different points, and then our turn came. What was happening was that you were taking group photographs with all the different groups. So I was very excited. So as our turn came to the West Indies, we were walking up on the stage. Swami was right in the middle of the stage. And he looked at me and he said, "You are tabla." So then I said, "Yes, Swami." And he put out his hand like this. And when he put out his hand like this, immediately I raised my hand, and he took me, and I was standing throughout that photo session next to Swami, you know, holding his hand for at least 2 to 3 minutes. And that was like, you know, I attained moksha, or liberation at that point. You know, just being in contact with the Lord himself. And then after that, in 2010, we were asked to again coordinate. That the West Indies region was asked to do an offering of songs, music, dances in Prashanti Nilayam, which Susan was also very much involved in that. And I was asked to coordinate a choir of about 120 members, and also an orchestra with about 20, I can't remember the exact figure right now, but using sitar, steel pan, keyboards, tabla, dola, tassa, drum kit, full orchestra, violin, etc. And then, in that particular year, I was really fortunate to present Swami with a rose. And that was really, really a lovely experience that we had. Being there, being able to, one of my dreams was that being able to perform, to not really to perform, but to offer my talent, to offer my music to Swami. And that was the opportunity that I got. And we were very fortunate that we even sang bhajans afterwards and have Swami sitting right in front there, listening to myself and other members of our group singing bhajan in his presence. I mean, what else can a musician ask for than to sit in front of the Lord and actually, render his bhajans?
So I would just go a little back that, with my interaction again with Swami. And it goes back to when we got engaged actually. And my test, again, I was always testing my husband here. Even though, with all that final decisions in our lives. And we again went to Puttaparthi after, 2 years after. And I remembered we had our rings, his engagement ring, and it was the first time I was meeting his parents as well. And I said to Swami, I said, Baba, here we are, and we have taken this step now to get engaged, and we would like to have your blessings. And again, this would be our our future. This is going to be our life together, and we want you to bless our lives, and our marriage. And Rana would have the rings in his hand. I didn't carry the rings with me because it was just perceived that Swami came to more him. And I said, you know what, that is what we're going to do. You take the rings with you. Lo and behold, that entire week that we spent there with his family, Swami it just wasn't happening. On my last day of returning, I said, you know what, if Baba does not bless these rings, I will take it as a sign that this is not to happen. And on our final day of darshan in the morning, Ranji had the rings with him, and lo and behold, again Swami weren't coming. And at that point, we lost hope. We said, okay, you know what, this is not happening.
In fact, I clearly remember during that entire week, while going for darshan, after sitting for darshan, some people wait, and soon as darshan they'll go up to the front and sit and wait for Swami to come back out for bhajans actually. And for that couple days, Swami never, after darshan, he wasn't coming out. He would just stand in the veranda and bless everybody from there, and never came in the crowd during the bhajans. So it was our final morning, as Suzanne said. And I had these rings with me, I said, this is my last chance. We're going back to Delhi, in the evening.
I was very adamant, I just kept praying. I said, Swami, this has to happen, and it cannot happen without you. So this was my test.
So after darshan, I immediately jumped and I ended up sitting in the front row. I was patiently just praying and hoping that Swami would come out. So eventually Swami came and he stood on the veranda, and I was just looking, and I said, I hope he doesn't just stand in the veranda. He comes and walk among the devotees. And he came, he stood in the veranda, and he was just, rocking like in his usual manner that he does. And then he started coming towards me. And I was just, dumbstruck. And just, like that, waiting, And then he walked directly in front of me and just stood there. And I said, Swami, these are my engagement rings, please bless them. And he said, he just smiled and he came and he just touched the engagement ring like that.
He put his hand
On both rings, and then of course that was our sign.
Yeah.
So our marriage is not by just chance or by luck. We have the grace of the Lord actually, and we continue to do His work, and
even our children, the birth of our children has also been all orchestrated, I truly believe in my heart, by Swami. Because in my first years when we got married, I was so career oriented. I worked really very hard to establish ourselves when we came back. And our children, it wasn't something that crossed our mind immediately. So as the years went along, I remember clearly, asking Swami, I was ready, and I said, I'm ready to start a family, and it just wasn't happening. And for both my children, Swami came to me in dreams, because it is said, and I won't say it is said anymore, because it's something now that is very real, that Baba only comes to you in dreams only if he wills it. And that is a very, very true thing that I believe, because both my kids were blessed by Swami, and seeing him, he came in the form of being a doctor, looking at me, smiling, and my children they were just here with me. And in my dream, he's being my doctor. And when my kids came into the world, everything in their lives have been orchestrated by Swami. Even my son playing drum kit, And as Ranaji said, when we went back in 2010, the person who was playing the drums was my little boy, Ashnish Mohip. And many years after, at the time, my girl, she was just 5 at the time, and she was very tiny, She also been very blessed to have this darshan. Many years after, I would come across a very beautiful picture with Swami, and lo and behold, what's this instrument that I'm seeing Swami holding in his hand? He has 2 sticks, and he's standing near a drum kit. So I really truly believe that Baba is very much in my life. Everything that is happening, he takes care of every step, every decision, and every opportunity. He takes care. The lessons that I've learned from Swami and interacting with Swami, it's one that is very deep and very meaningful, and that is to have a lot of patience. And everything that happens for a reason. I have learned also to keep my faith and believe in what I do. And whatever happens in life happens all by His will. I may not see it now, or we may not see it now, or my children may not see it now at the moment, but as time passes and we reflect, we come back to everything happens for a reason.
Well, the lessons that I have learned from Swami is that, humanity is one. I look at all individuals, no matter color, creed, race. I look at everyone equally. And, myself being a musician, I have performed in churches, I have performed in mosques, I have performed in the Gurudwara, I have performed in temple. And because music is like that, music has no barriers. So we see everyone is equal. There's one caste, the caste of humanity. There's only one language, the language of the heart. So the lessons that we have really learned from Swami is be humble. Be humble. Always speak softly and sweetly to others.
Have patience.
of patience, and this reflects the devotees of Swami as well. So when you see a devotee of Swami, you see these characteristics within that
And
person.
also service is very important. Our service to our music and our dance and our talent is really one that is, one that does not hold us back. We give, it's a devotion for us, and it is something that Swami has taught us that, if you have talent, what can you do with your talent? How can you serve with your talent? How can you help others? And I truly believe that over the years of dancing, since I was 3 to now, to date, that giving back and sharing your knowledge is important. And also in service, mainly in service, is very important.
As I always tell Susan, we were very fortunate that we had the opportunity to go to India and study music and dance. And when coming back to Trinidad, one of the first things that we thought of doing is sharing that knowledge, with the population of Trinidad and Tobago. Hence we started Sangeet Mahavidyalaya, which is our school of music and dance, and imparting our knowledge, to the youths, to help society as a whole. Because this is what Baba teaches, help others so that they can help themselves as well. So,
and I truly have one experience also, as I'm talking to you about talent and from a performance perspective. When we had gone in 2010, and Ranaji had the opportunity and he had the responsibility of actually presenting the choir and the orchestra, the dance that we choreographed did not happen. And it was disappointing, but I said again, Swami knows everything. He knew the amount of work that we had put in. He saw the work that we had put in. But for some reason when we got there was a bit of miscommunication and that piece of dance did not happen. Lo and behold, the following year when we came back, the year that we came back, that piece just stayed very quiet. Nobody went back to it, nobody danced it, but it was always there in our hearts. And the following year, I was asked to produce a piece on my country, and a piece that represented diversity, was based on diversity. I remembered clearly the night before that I was going to present this piece. I dreamt Swami, and Swami said to me, "Don't worry, a lot will come your way. Many things will come your way. Many opportunities will come your way." He raised his hand and he blessed me. I performed that piece that was choreographed in Trinidad for 10 years after, with great success. That piece that I was supposed to do in Puttaparthi was actually presented on stage here in Trinidad, but then on a different forum. And for 10 years that piece had reigned successfully till date. Just earlier this year, my son had a concert and we again performed that piece very lovingly. It was called Diversity, Unity in Diversity. So that's again, I'm saying, we as artists, we have what is, which is close to our heart, which is our talent. But Swami again knows when our hearts are pure in what we do.
who is Sai? Sai is the avatar of the age, Kali Yuga. He is everything to us.
He is.
We depend on him, we look towards him to guide us in everything that we do. And he is really the guiding light, of our lives. And, our success in all that we do so far is only through His grace and blessings. He's everything to us. Let me take this opportunity to thank the SSSIO of Trinidad and Tobago for giving us this opportunity to share our experiences with all of you. Thank you very much. Sayonara.
Sayonara.
Hara 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 Mahadeva. Mahadeva. Hara 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 Mahadeva. Mahadeva. Shiva 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 Sada Shiva. 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 Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. 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 Brahma Vishnu Suratitaya. 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 Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Uma Ganesha Sharavan Sevitha. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Uma Ganesha Sharavan Sevitha. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Uma Ganesha Sharavan Sevitha. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Hara 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 Mahadeva. Hara 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 Mahadeva. Shiva 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 Sada Shiva. Shiva 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 Sada Shiva. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Brahma Vishnu Suratitaya. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Brahma Vishnu Suratitaya. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Uma Ganesha Sharavan Sevita. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. Uma Ganesha Sharavan Sevita. Om Namo Namo Namah Shivaya. 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 Hara 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 Mahadeva.